Facebook group. I'm terrible at intros, but you see who's with me. It's probably the most prolific person in the group. You've asked for it. You've been wanting to see what this man has in his closet, and it's my duty to go and find out for you and share it with you. We're here with Nick Piper.
What's good, y'all? What's good, 859? Can I restart, please? Hey, what's good, guys? Obviously, a lot of you guys know who I am. You know, I've been 859 about 9-10 years now. Just here to kind of showcase some of my heat. You know, show you guys what I got in the collection. A lot of you've been in the game for a long time. I think a lot of you guys will recognize these, the Doernbecher 8s. This is one of my favorite. This is a top 3 Doernbecher for me personally. I got these back in 2017, 2018, I think. Paid, I think, $600 for these dead stock. Obviously, you know, I've worn them. There's creasing right there. In my opinion, this is definitely, like I said, top 3 Doernbecher of all time. Although I will say, it's a hard shoe to wear. You know, obviously, you know, it's very vibrant, a lot of colors going on here. But I think there's a really cool story behind it. If you don't know, with the Doernbecher line, you know, Doernbecher Hospital up in Oregon, they partner with Jordan brands to help these kids with diseases. What they do is they'll let the kids, you know, design every year. You know, certain amount of shoes will come out, and the kids will design them. I've had these multiple times. The first time I had them, I did have the flashlight, had OGL, but I ended up having to sell those when I had to get a new car. So I did just recently pick these back up. I do have a black light though. Like I said, this is my favorite Doernbecher right here. And obviously I would love to have a fresh pair, you know, that I can, you know, wear whenever I'd like. Yeah, this is the 2013 pair. So they originally came out in 2010, and then Nike decided to re-release these back in 2013.
Which was kind of weird, only a 3-year.
There's really, yeah, and I've seen the 2010 pair. Like I said, this is the 2013 pair, and I don't really think there's much of a difference, truthfully. Like I've seen them side by side. I really didn't notice a single difference. But this, again, another amazing Doernbecher, you know, all red pair. When these came out, these were like $650, $700. You know, back in 2010, Jordan Brand kind of wanted to release, you know, a lot of shoes that, you know, showcase the best quality materials that they had to offer at the time. This is a pretty hard shoe to wear just because, you know, we got a lot going on here. But, you know, even on the, you know, Ben, you know, all the Ben shoes, you know, they got that Ben 23 stamp right there. But as I said, the quality on these is amazing. These are starting to separate a little bit. I do wear these pretty often. It's probably one of my most worn, you know, Grail, you know, sneakers. You know, the Ben 9s, the material on this, man, is just absolutely, it's nuts. You know, like I said, we got the Ben 23 stamp right here. This pair is actually pair number 4. I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but this is pair number 4, which is kind of crazy to think about. I picked these up back in 2024. Honestly, this is probably my second favorite Ben of the series. I know we got that Ben 6, which I think is pretty cool. They're bringing the Ben series back. Yeah, this is my favorite pair out of the Ben series. It is probably the hardest to wear. Probably this in the set, you know, just because the colorway on it.
And an all-white bottom.
Exactly. But Nike just hit it out of the park with these, man. They feel... This is kind of hard. It's kind of hard to think about. I wanted to say something, but I'm trying to keep it PG, man. Man, I'm not gonna get into that. But all I gotta say is, you know, it was just butter right there. We do have the Trophy Room 1 with the blue laces.
Were you part of the backdoor scandal for this release?
All I'm gonna say is I know where my original pair came from.
Did Marcus Jordan personally give you these?
No comment on that.
Because if you remember at the time, the only way you could really tell if you had a trophy room pair was having the blue laces. Because there was a lot of these quote-unquote backdoor pairs that did not have the blue laces, and then Marcus Jordan came out and said, they're not our pairs because our pairs have these blue laces. I've always kind of wondered if he just tried to pull that off late to try to, you know, throw things off, but...
He 100% did, and I know this because somebody on Instagram, when the shoes officially released, after the trophy room drop, you know, there was the exclusive access on sneakers,
right, which
maybe was about like 100 pairs, if that. Somebody did win on sneakers, and they said their sneakers pair, and they posted on Instagram. They posted that their trophy room from sneakers did not come with blue laces.
Right.
Now, obviously, we know that. I remember back in the day. If you were back in 2021 when Jordan, I think this was when Jordan 1 hype reached its. I think this was
the pinnacle of the Jordan 1 hype.
Absolutely. This right here. I think this really just kind of
because coming off the Last Dance in 2020, everyone wanted Chicago ones, and then we heard rumors about this color code of Chicago ones coming back, and then the Trophy Room collaboration with it. You have the All Star theme. I mean, people were doing some crazy things for this shoe.
And what's crazy? And what's crazy is when this shoe. A lot of this shoe was back in January, end of January. We were seeing these big resales like Benjamin Kicks. A lot of these guys, they were posting like hundreds. I mean, like hundreds of pairs, and after that, Marcus Jordan. I think we all know, he 100% backdoored these. There's no denying. I mean, there's
allegedly.
I'm just saying, man. I think my opinion, this is the best trophy room to release. I 100% would take these over the ones. I do think these are better in terms of colorway, material, and quality. But what's crazy about this shoe is when these first released, resale was maybe $400 or $500, so they were pretty obtainable. And then overnight, I think it was like right after COVID happened, literally overnight, these skyrocketed like $1,000, $1,500. This is kind of a similar sort of the Trophy Room 5s, like when these first released, resale was between, $400 to $600. So, it's pretty obtainable. And I mean, these were definitely a limited collaboration, but, these weren't, like one of 5, one of 10,000. There was definitely, a good amount of pairs out.
Yeah, there was a sneakers release, and then there was the actual Union Los Angeles release.
In my opinion, this is this is kind of getting unpopular, but I think this pair is better than this pair.
Oh,
this pair is just easier to wear, in my opinion. I know people say, "Oh, Jordan 1 hype died." For me, I don't think it really died. Jordan 1's one of my favorite models. But I'm glad the Chicago Unions, are kind of the price point they're at now. It makes it to where people actually want the shoe to wear them. They can grab a dope shoe for $250, $300, if that. If I remember correctly, was it Devin Booker who hooped in a pair of these?
I believe so, and I believe
back in 2015.
Even more notorious than Devin Booker was Ethan Sieg wearing these.
Yep. He's a great OG sneaker, great guy. He's had some great
Ethan pulled off some fits with these. I distinctly remember him walking around UK wearing these.
Him and I don't know if you remember Brandon McCauley.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, him. Both those guys, two great dudes. They had some insane stuff back in the day. If you were walking around UK's campus with this on, you were him. That's all I got to say. Shout out to Ethan Saying, by the way. I think I have one more pair on the other table that might be a little might take that crown. I don't know.
Well, I mean, as far as just the general public, this was everyone's quote unquote grail for a long time.
Absolutely, right? And I mean, this was this is the first Jordan, Travis Scott Jordan 1 that we've seen. And in my opinion, this is still the best. Besides these and the OG Mocha Lows, early pairs are hitting for around $1,300, $1,400, and so everyone thought they were. I remember people in 859 thought these were going to go down. At release, which for most shoes that is true. I mean, look at the Union Frag ones that just came out. They early pairs $500, $600, and now you get a good $275, $300. But I mean, this pair. Like we're talking about the Jordan 1 hype, this really really kind of, I don't want to say
sent it to the stratosphere.
Exactly. It was already building, we had already seen some, these, the Unions released, a year before this.
Well, those and the Off-White ones, I think hitting right before the pandemic. Of course, Virgil stuff came out a little bit sooner, but 2020, I felt like everybody was pulling these out.
I think we all kind of know what these are, but for those who don't, these are the Jordan 1 Rust Pinks. These did release back in Miami with their sister pair of the Jordan 1 Igloos back in 2017.
For our Basel, right?
Mm-hmm. What's a cool story about this shoe was they were originally supposed to release in a store in Miami, right? Can't remember the name of the store, but the hype and the demand, there's so many people there. The store, they just couldn't handle that foot traffic. So what they had to do was they had to move the release. And what's cool about how they did it was they ended up moving the release onto a yacht. Still in Miami. It's a Jordan 4 Snakeskin. Now these released back in 2016. Part of the Air Jordan Pinnacle, not pack, but the Air Jordan Pinnacle series
collection.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to say very similar to the Ben collection, but more similar to how better materials, great quality. And when this sneaker would retail for $400, and for the longest time, I hate using the term brick because it's just a reseller / hype beast term. I mean, they were selling for under retail. These were hard movers if you were trying to sell a pair. They're going for $350, $375 all day. Another eBay pickup not too long ago. These are the Jordan OVO 12s. They started as samples that surfaced back in 2013, 14. If you guys remember the Perfect Pair, I remember he had these way before they released the sample version, and that Stingray, man. It's crazy. Obviously, I don't think 12's really hyped, but back when these dropped, I think they, probably one of the most hyped shoes of the year back in the day. So, if you remember the story, obviously we had the Platts, in the Solar's release, and after that, Kanye publicly started falling out with Nike because he was upset with how they were releasing the shoes and some other stuff too. And so there were rumors of a third pair of the Nike Yeezy 2 releasing, but Nike kind of didn't say anything. They kind of put out a tweet that there was no plans to release another Nike Yeezy 2 at the time. And then, if I remember correctly, Kim Kardashian on Instagram posted just posted a little, like a picture that just slightly showed the Red October. So people thought maybe it was a sample. They were getting hyped. They're like, maybe it's going to release. And then pictures of these started circulating online. I do think this. I remember, I think it was last year, Complex, they did rank these as the most iconic shoe of the 21st century. And I mean, to an extent, yeah, I would agree. I think this was the Yeezy 2 specifically. These, I think really kind of kickstarted the hypebeast culture, that we kind of know today. These at a certain point were hitting $15,000-$20,000, and even on release day, as sold out instantly. Pairs were instantly selling for $4,000 to $5,000, and like I said, and I know, the culture's market's kind of shifted to, where I don't want to say, these, tanked in value, but I mean, like, obviously they're not going for, 15, 20K anymore, but this shoe, I think, in my opinion, when we talk about Kanye, when we talk about Yeezys, Kanye West shoes, I think, this shoe is at the top. When it comes, best, in my opinion, best Yeezy release of all time. I am trying to actually wear the shoe for my wedding next month.
Now, people always say the way to determine if a Red October is real or not is it has a certain distinct odor to it. Is this accurate?
Yes, they smell like shit. They smell like rotten eggs, man.
Why do they smell this way?
I think it was the material used, What's crazy to say, the materials are nice, but...
So do these smell like eggs?
Yes, they do. No, I'm not about to slip them. Trust me, I know.
let the camera slip them.
No, go ahead. Y'all be my guest. So this pair first hit I don't want to say hit the mark, because like I said, this is a player exclusive, so these were only given to the 2014 Oregon football team. I'm not going to say his name. I will say I did reach out to him on Instagram to see if he had the original box, but I'm not going to say any names.
2011.
So this shoe, the cool thing about this shoe was released in 2011, only at Miami and Boston House of Hoops. So this is the Ray Allen 13 PE. And so this shoe was kind of made to celebrate Ray Allen breaking the three-point record at the time. Obviously Steph Curry has long since broken that record. But when these drop, man, we talk about limited releases. But definitely one of my favorite shoes. I've worn these multiple times, one at the casino, and then I have worn these to the movies of all places, which is funny because like 2 weeks after I got the shoe, I really wanted to wear it, so I was like, okay, we're going to the movies. All right, I'm just going to throw on a black sweatshirt, jeans. I'm going to throw these on because I really, like I said, these were a grail when I was a kid, or I was, more like a teenager, and obviously I couldn't afford, the ridiculous price tag that these were fetching back in the day. So to have the shoe in my collection now, it really means a lot. This is one of the shoes I would definitely never let go. Again, kind of hit, it's kind of same sort of the fives. These were only given to the 2013 Oregon football team. Obviously we got that all in the back, and when we talk about quality, man, the materials on these, absolute butter. It's a 13-year-old sneaker, so there's a little bit of paint crack right now, as there should be. I haven't gotten these restored. This is a shoe that I probably won't get restored. And obviously, the most infamous thing about the shoe that separates real from fake pairs is you can kind of see, the back tab peeling. What the material, it wasn't regular paint that Jordan Brand used on these back tabs, and so the material, so due to that material being used, over time, especially after they're worn, it will start to chip and flake. But again, that's kind of how you tell now. For the most part, that's kind of how you can tell authenticity. These were these shoes, and in my opinion, this is my favorite Oregon PE besides the Duckman 5s, that's probably a shoe that I'll never own. Them fetching $20,000-$30,000. But kind of, like I said, same story with the 5s. I saw these, in high school, and I really wanted them, but I didn't have thousands of dollars to spend. I didn't have enough shoes to trade at the time. So like I said, all I had was GRs. So owning a shoe like this is very special to me. Again, another shoe that I will never get rid of in the collection. That's my guys over.
I'm sure you cannot wear the shoe in Lexington.
Yeah, shout out to my guys over at English Soul for hooking me up with these. They are the Air Jordan 4 Florida PE. So kind of a similar story, to some of the other PEs over here. But these were given to the 2018 2018 Florida football team right before the Rose Bowl. And so I'm pretty sure these are given to some of the staff as well, because there are, I think, about 140-ish pairs on the market right now. Still a very rare shoe nonetheless. But I mean, this is just an amazing sneaker right here, and I am waiting for the right occasion to undead stock this sneaker. We kind of got this, got the orange speckles right there on the midsole, and we got the, pretty cool back tab too. But definitely, probably, my favorite shoe in my collection. Probably these and the Oregon 4s, honestly. Just in terms of, I think when it comes to PEs, I think the Jordan 4s, this, 2018 Jordan 4 pack,
So, wrapping things up, how important is sneaker community to you when it comes to this? You've been in the group for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Just how important has it been to have a local sneaker community to you with your journey through collecting?
Sneaker community to me, it's kind of been everything, because, when I first started, I was, 13, 14-year-old kid, so I didn't have social media or anything. So, I was kind of at the mercy of, mowing the yards, birthday money, just doing odd jobs, and, kind of be at the mercy of my parents, being willing to take me to those sneaker stores, because, obviously they're not going to, let their 13, 14-year-old kid have social media. So, I was kind of, limited to, whatever's in the mall, whatever's in these stores at the time. But, once I was in high school, once I joined 859, that's really kind of when, I've always had a passion for shoes, but, I really kind of skyrocketed because I was meeting, all these new people who, are still, very close today. I mean, Matt Price, we've done damn near well over 100, 200 deals together. I still do deals with that man like once every couple months to this day. Guys like Tristan Gilbert, I think, we've done plenty of deals, great reseller, in my opinion, best reseller in Kentucky. If you were in the group, especially, during the Yeezy hype, that man damn near had
All of Fame.
Oh my gosh. Basically any Yeezy in Lexington, had probably gone through that man's, hands at that point, at any point in time. I met, guys like Grant Clay, one of my closest friends, and we still talk, we still do deals to this day. I think, 859, in my opinion, it's not even just about sneakers with me. I've met some of my closest friends in general, in that group. Like my buddy Chris, he's not really into shoes anymore, but I met him through that group, and he's one of my closest friends to this day.